There are career tips for people over 50 that most folks don't want to bring up. And when I say most folks, I mean it could be a family member or a friend or a coworker or maybe even a career coach or a career counselor. They don't want to bring up some things that really need to be said because they want to be politically correct or they don't want to offend their friend. They don't want to offend their coworker. They don't want to offend their family member. But you know what? When they don't bring these things up, they're not doing you any favors whatsoever. If you're going to be going into a job interview and you don't know some of the things that you really should be knowing, some of the things that maybe you should avoid when you're going in for that interview. Well, in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you what I call 9 shockingly blunt interview tips that I know could help you if you're going in for a job interview, if you're somebody who's over 50. I'm going to share those blunt interview tips with you. And that, my friends, that's up next right here on Over 50 TV. Welcome back to Over 50 TV. My name is Lou Reyes, and today we're going to be talking about 9 shockingly blunt interview tips for people over 50. And before I get into any of these tips, I want to be sure that I give credit where credit is due. I ran a video not long ago, and the video was called Big Mistakes People Over 50 Make in a Job Interview. And I ran that video, great video, very helpful, and then I got received a response, or I should say a comment from a viewer by the name of Mark, or that's what they go by. And Mark had some very interesting things to say about that video, and the things that he said I thought could be very helpful, and that is why we're producing this video here today. I want to thank Mark for what he said, but what he said was this. He said, these tips in the video are basic tips for anyone interviewing. And yeah, Mark, you're right, buddy. The tips that we gave you were pretty basic tips, but they were tips that were applicable to our age group. But you know what? They were kind of what I would just say benign tips. They weren't hitting hard or hitting home. Certainly not as hard or hitting as direct as Mark's tips were, the tips that he included in his comment. And I'm going to start out with these tips because I think they're fantastic. I think we all, if we're over 50, I do think, yeah, we need to hear this. We need to hear things that are applicable to our age group, and we need to hear them in a raw, uncut format where someone is just telling you like it is, and that's what we're going to do here today. We're going to start with Mark's tip number 1. Ditch the 1990s suit and get a modern one in fashion. And yeah, Mark, I agree with that completely, my friend. I do see, and I have seen, I've interviewed hundreds of people in my career. I've interviewed people of all age groups, and I can tell you that sometimes, yes, I will have a person who's a bit older, somebody who's over 45 or 50, who's come into that job interview, and they're wearing some clothes that are back in the 1990s. Maybe their mom or their grandmother picked out that suit or, that blouse or that dress. Yeah, I think that's extremely important. I think you always want to wear clothing, some items that are more in fashion. No doubt about it. I think we'd all agree with that. Be well groomed and get rid of the Santa Claus beard. Well, you know what? If you have to be told or need to be told that you should be well groomed when you're going in for a job interview, you know what? Nothing we say, none of the 9 tips that we're going to give you are going to help you because you are just set in your ways. And I even hate to say that, but you're set in your ways. If you got to be told, you're not going to do it. Now, here's the other thing. He says, get rid of the Santa Claus beard. Well, I don't think you absolutely need to get rid of any kind of a beard whatsoever, but I do think if it does look like a Santa Claus beard, if it's one of those full beards that's white and it's just hanging down, well, you know what? It's your first impression. What's going to give the impression you're going to give is as somebody who is maybe moving a little bit slowly, who's all jolly and happy. And if it's a company that's looking for somebody who's going to do the grind, they want someone who is going to look the part. So yeah, if you do have that full Santa Claus beard, my suggestion is trim it up, cut it down, maybe do a little coloring on it if that's going to help. But otherwise, if you've got a Santa Claus beard, the only place that's going to help you at all is at the North Pole. Number 3, consider dyeing hair to get rid of gray. And get rid of that gray if it's at all possible. You could want to go in there and be natural, but you know what? You're going in there giving rather a first impression. If you really do want to give a great first impression, consider all the little things. And all the little things definitely includes getting rid of some of that gray if it's at all possible. Maybe that's your style. Maybe you do want to go in and you could be a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old going into an interview and you've got white hair, and that's fine because people can look at you and think, well, that person is being stylish. But when you are a bit older, when you're over 45 or you're over 50, you're going into a job interview, consider dyeing your hair. Consider getting rid of the gray. There's nothing wrong with that. It's your first impression. I suggest you do that. Come back at me. You could come back at me and say, Lou, I'm going to be natural. I just want to be who I am. Okay, be who you are while you are on the unemployment line, and good luck to you. That's what I'll say. Be confident and assertive, have energy. And absolutely, if you go into a job interview, you want to go in there, you want to be confident. You want to go in there knowing your value, understanding who you are. And when I do anything, I go into that meeting, and if I'm going into an interview, if I was going into a job interview, I want them to know how lucky they are that I am there. And I wouldn't be cocky whatsoever, but I would definitely go in there confident, knowing my true value. Now, another thing he says is to have energy. And absolutely, if you go in there and you're a little bit lethargic, well, that's not going to help you. So if you realize, hey, I don't have a lot of energy today, maybe I got up and I was a little bit nervous, I didn't sleep last night, I was getting ready for this job interview. If you're a little lethargic, then get some coffee or grab a Red Bull and drink down a cup of coffee or a cup of 2 or a cup of 3 cups of coffee, or have a Red Bull or 2, whatever you got to do to up that energy level while you're there. And I've said this before in this tip interview. I said this before is, a lot of people want to be who they are. And I get that. I get you want to be authentic. But as I said before, you can be authentic and be in the unemployment line. Don't go into a job interview without having that energy and that drive that people want and that confidence. Nobody wants to hire a wallflower. I'll tell you this. Nobody wants to hire somebody who's going to talk real low and go in there with low energy and just sit there like a lump of coal on a chair. That's a term I haven't said in a long, long time. But yeah, you want to go into that job interview, be confident, be assertive, and have energy. No jokes that anyone under 35 won't get. And absolutely, when you're going into a job interview, you do want to break the ice a little bit. You could say something that's maybe a little icebreaker kind of funny thing to say or even do when you're sitting down at that job interview. But yeah, I totally agree. Any joke that somebody under 35 isn't going to get, take that out, throw that out of your repertoire, get rid of it, don't bring it up. Don't bring it up during the conversation. Just try to be as current as absolutely possible. Be up on technology and trends, talk some cryptocurrency. In all of our videos, yes, we do say we recommend that you be up on technology and trends. You should know that anyway. It's going to help you throughout your life, whether it's your business or your career or your personal life. You want to be up on technology and trends. But he says talk some cryptocurrency. I think quite a few of us, and myself included, I know a little bit about cryptocurrency just because I've done some videos on it. But up until that point, I didn't know anything about crypto. But it does help to know. You never know when you can bring up something that's very current, that people are talking about, that's a topic on every CNBC show out there. So yeah, totally, absolutely. Technology and trends, be up on those things. That's important, but also being up on cryptocurrency. I really like the fact that Mark brought that up because I think that's a nice little touch. Get in shape as much as possible. A hiring manager doesn't want a heart attack on a stick. And you know what? We started this video by saying shockingly blunt interview tips for people over 50. And this is about as blunt as you can get. Get in shape as much as possible. Absolutely. You're going into that job interview. And maybe, just maybe, you haven't worried about taking care of yourself for a long time. You just take some things for granted. Maybe you're a bit lazy. I think oftentimes we just get a little bit complacent. We're not worried about it. We've got a job. Just like we had a relationship. We get a relationship and we're not worried so much until we end up losing that relationship. And all of a sudden we're at the gym and we're worrying or working on ourselves. He is right. Mark is right. Get in shape as much as possible. And he says this, a hiring manager doesn't want a heart attack on a stick. And I totally agree. Number 8, Don't be a grandpa or a grandma. You are in a competition. And absolutely, you know you're in a competition. The HR manager knows you're in a competition. You're going to be competing with people who may be 10, 20, or 30 years younger than you. If you want to win that race, you got to go in there and be your best self. Don't remind that HR manager of their grandfather or their grandmother. And I've had people throughout my career who've come into my office and they maybe were walking a bit gingerly. They'd sit down and were a bit fussy. Maybe they sat down, they had to have their purse just at a certain place, or they had their briefcase just opened up just right. And I would sit and look at them sometimes and I would think, yeah, they do remind me of my granddad. They remind me of my grandmother. I love them both, but I probably wouldn't hire them. Don't remind that HR manager of their grandparents. Remind them that you are somebody who is capable, somebody who has the skills, the talent, and the experience that can help them, can help their company. Number 9, don't talk subjects that remind hiring manager how old you are, like your grandchildren or Bill Clinton. Number 9, yeah, that is an interesting close to the shockingly blunt interview tips for people over 50. Don't talk about subjects that remind that hiring manager how old you are. And yeah, when you do talk about your grandchildren, when you start talking about them, yeah, you're happy to talk about those great, wonderful additions to your life. But it does remind that hiring manager that this person is a little bit older. They're going to see it. You can't hide it. And I know you're probably, or you could be sitting there watching this video and think, hey, Lou, they're going to know how old I am. It doesn't really matter. But yeah, you know what? It really does. Don't remind them of that. You can always think of topics or subjects that are a little bit more current to remind them of really how good you are, or remind them of the skills that you have and the value that you bring to that company. When you bring up past presidents, when you bring up political people or people that are in history, I could bring up 2 dozen people that I've met who are well-known people. But you know what? Some of them are 20, 30, well, I'd say maybe 10 or 20 years ago. I don't want to bring them up when I'm talking to somebody. I bring up current things like right now, what's going on today. I want them to know that I'm current. I'm on top of things. I'm on top of business. I'm on top of careers. I'm on top of finances. That's what you want to do. So yeah, absolutely. I do agree with Mark. Don't talk subjects that remind the hiring manager of how old you are. Well, there you go, folks. I've just given you 9 career interview tips when you are over 50. And those tips, all of them are courtesy of Mark, one of our viewers who sent them in to me. And he sent them in, as I mentioned, he was following up on a video I did called Big Mistakes People Over 50 Make in a Job Interview. And Mark, I'm so grateful for you to sending in those tips. Those were, I believe they were pretty blunt. They're straightforward. And those are tips can help you out there. If you're somebody who is going to be going into a job interview, just think about them. Talk to a friend or two, a family member, a coworker, and ask them if any one of these things apply to you. If there's something that you can learn, that you can glean out of all this material, all this information that we just produced here for you to hear today. So that's all I've got for you. I do want to ask you, though, if you would subscribe to our channel. It's important, and I'm finding out this is more and more important with YouTube. Give us a thumbs up, because if you give us a thumbs up, that lets YouTube know that you enjoyed watching this video, that you got value in it. I think what happens is I think they may recommend it to more people. I'm seeing that our videos are getting some good response. They're getting a lot of comments, but I am not seeing that the videos are necessarily getting out to as many people as I would like to see them get out to. But, hey, that's just me. Anyways, that's all I've got for you. As I say all the time, have a great day, everybody.